So,
yeah, and some other folks are coming on. Hi, Maria. Hi, Nicole.
We did put this on our calendar as well to kind of inform people about it, and they even had the option to register if they wanted. But
Awesome. Well, we can just keep it for those of you who haven't been at one of these office hours before. This is just really informal, a chance to just kind of ask some questions, and you don't have to stay the whole time. It's just, you know, pop in and we can have our chat and pop back out. So we don't have any kind of set discussion points for this since it is pretty informal. So we'd love to know kind of what questions you have and let you drive the conversations. And Maria says her internet connection isn't as good today. So Maria, if there's anything you want to ask to or chat about, you know, feel free to type that in the chat too, and we can, we can take it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I love Nicole's background.
How about that? That's they made
awesome.
That for our virtual programming. So that's for the children. And then there's a teen one too. I'm calling because I know you've sent emails on press releases, and I'm printing off a lot of stuff. I'm sorry, it's loud here. But can you just give us a synopsis of why it's exciting that LYRASIS bought everything, and how this affects us, and how does it affect Connecticut State Libraries? That would help me.
Definitely.
who wants to take it? We're all like looking around like, who's going to take it?
Yeah, I mean, I can start, and then the experts can jump in. So
That works.
so you know, one of the things that that we've looked for is maybe some different functionality and to move forward on different pieces that will enhance the experience for our patrons and ease of use for our public libraries. So a partnership with DPLA and LYRASIS, who have been essentially key partners since day one in the EGO program. A partnership it's really just an evolution where we're moving forward. And again, the back end, that's one thing that I think that a lot of people might be concerned about, but the back end, all the configurations that were done by LYRASIS, that work remains valid. What will change once we get to the point where we can roll it out is the app. So it would almost be like just, you know, updating the SimplyE app with the new app, and then, you know, patrons will be able to access the content. And for the public libraries themselves, it won't change a whole lot. It'll be a branding change, and then I think some enhanced functionality. And we'll, you know, so I think we'll see some stability to the platform, and I think at that point it'll be really powerful for us to encourage people to take advantage of the platform, which is super important to the state library because we've invested a lot of money in the collections, and we really want to see them utilized because they're not being utilized at a high rate right now.
Right. So, and one more time, LYRASIS was able to acquire or go into partnership with whom again?
Digital Public Library of America. So that's one of the key partners that the state library has in the EGO program. And we purchase content from them. And they also provide us with access to what's called the open bookshelf, which has over 10,000 sort of public domain titles that are integrated into our interface. So it really enhances the breadth of our collection, and, you know, provides those resources obviously to the public library. So very powerful, great partnership, critical to any success that we have had and that we will have in the future.
Okay.
I honestly don't have very much. Oh, no, go ahead, Nicole.
I was just going to say, and did I see that LYRASIS was in contract or in purchase BiblioBoard?
That's correct. That is
yeah.
accurate as of yesterday. The press release went out that LYRASIS did acquire the Bibliolabs organization, and they will be joining our team shortly.
And so BiblioBoard, I had, when I was a previous life, worked at Wells Turner Memorial Library. They had the BiblioBoard there, so I'm familiar with it. Are you going to have, is it the whole functionality, or is it just selected portions of all of their portfolio, I almost want to say.
Yeah, so LYRASIS acquired the entire portfolio. And so the Biblio Labs team will become a new division within LYRASIS and will operate essentially as they have been for the last several years, just as a division now of LYRASIS. So from a day-to-day operations perspective, everything will be the same with the exception of the Biblio Labs folks. I guess we'll have LYRASIS emails now. We don't... in terms of how that acquisition impacts the next steps with our ebook program, are still very young in discussion. So
Okay.
as of right now, the way that the ebook platform, so SimplyE, that we've been hosting as part of the Ego project, which will be changing, but for now I'll just say that app. Does integrate with Biblio Board. So if you purchase content from Biblio Board, either directly through Biblio Labs or through the DPLA exchange, and the DPLA actually offer Biblio Board content as well. So you have a couple different procurement mechanisms or channels that can be integrated into our ebook app.
Okay.
So that functionality has existed and will continue to exist. And I think this acquisition, well, I know will open up more avenues for deeper collaboration and partnership and technical integrations in the future. But that is all to be determined. So as of where we sit right here today, nothing will really change beyond this kind of day-to-day operations that had existed just last week when the two organizations were merged.
Okay.
And the only thing I'll add to that is just in terms of a partnership like that, the merger is really a positive thing. We've purchased content from Biblio Board through DPLA, and their terms are simultaneous use and perpetual ownership for all of the titles that we've purchased from them. And there's almost 1,200 titles that we purchased. So we have them for as many people want to use them, and in perpetuity we own them. So that's the type of licensing format that we're really looking forward to getting more of. So to us, this merger is really a positive for the state library and for the library community. So that's great news for us.
And do we just want to mention how nice it is that we're bringing them into our nonprofit fold rather than having it be another for-profit kind of merger, that this company is going from being a company that's a for-profit company to going into being part of a nonprofit company. And I think that's kind of a neat, in this world where you see so many mergers and acquisitions and all that kind of stuff, it's kind of cool to see one entering the nonprofit space as well.
Yeah, it's almost, instead of for profit, it's for libraries. And that's the best way it could be. And for our patrons as well.
Did that answer your question, Nicole? Or yeah, okay, cool, excellent. Welcome, Marianne and Heidi. I think came on since we've been chatting. So this is just an informal little drop in. You don't have to stay the whole time, and you can stay the long you want to stay, and we don't have a set discussion. So yeah, there's Marianne. Go ahead and ask your question.
I turned the video off because I'm eating lunch, so that's the only reason.
Cool. Well, it's great to have you. Was there anything you wanted to chat about in particular?
No, actually, I just wanted to see. I'm at that stage where I'm listening to other people to see what I can learn and ask questions about. Maybe later, maybe next month, I'll play around, what I hear, and then I'll play around with it a bit more than I have, and then hopefully have more productive questions next month. Or I could, get that Brad and bother him. So either way, it will work. Thanks.
Awesome. Okay. And then Maria and Heidi, if there was anything that you wanted to chat about, like I said, we don't have an agenda really. This is really kind of your opportunity to hop in and ask questions, and yeah, chat about SimplyE and about ebooks and the new app and everything.
Well, maybe while we have other library people in the room, it would be helpful to talk about the statistics that I'm interested in pulling out and how we can make that work so it's easier for the libraries. So from the annual report point of view, what I'm looking for is the number of checkouts from SimplyE of items that have a specific checkout period and get returned. So from an IMLS point of view, if it's a public domain book that libraries people can just borrow forever, that to them doesn't qualify as a checkout or a circulation. So there are so many different kind of parameters to add into it in terms of a search. And then obviously breaking it out by individual libraries. And so if there's a way to automate this so that each of the 191 libraries doesn't have to go and figure out how to do it, that would be really amazing. Like if there's some way you guys behind the scenes can run a report for me or teach Brad how to do it or somehow shove this information out. And I think it would even be helpful if we grab all of the checkouts that happened in SimplyE so that libraries don't have to go there to figure out, was that a state-owned thing or something that my specific library owned or a consortium owned? I don't know if that's possible to do, but if we can sort of pull out an extra step for them and remove that step, maybe that would be useful. Does that make sense what I'm describing to the DPLA and
I think
LYRASIS
I've lost
people?
the second half of it. So the first half is just total number of checkouts that originated from SimplyE for your licensed materials.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, a one aggregate total for the entire state, and then broken out per library
Yes.
in the state. The second half of your question is where I got lost.
Okay. And to backtrack, I'm also looking for audio versus ebook. So
Okay.
that format matters.
Okay.
And I don't know enough about the content in SimplyE to understand if it's all stuff that is provided by the state or if SimplyE also provides right access to other things that the library owns. Yeah, so what I would like to do is have kind of one number for everything that's in SimplyE per library, regardless of who owned that content, so that an individual library would not have to go into SimplyE and try to download their own statistics for items for content that they own versus content that the state owns.
So what sort of metrics at the individual library level would you want? So thinking Derby Public Library, for instance.
Yep.
Has all of the Connecticut materials as well as their own. And we track Derby Public Library patron usage of those materials across all of the distributors that we've integrated. So at an aggregate level for Derby Public, what would you want to see?
I think I would like to see one number of ebooks and one number of audiobooks that Derby patrons checked out from SimplyE.
Okay.
Kind of regardless of who owns that content. And kind of kicking it back to Nicole, do you think, you know, do we need to break that out any further? Like, are you interested in more granular detail?
Well, I'm going to piggyback on that because when I run my stats for SimplyE, I have to read the directions every time. It's a bit hard, but that's okay. That's what open source is. It's a bit hard. And I almost disregard whatever I've done in Overdrive because I don't know, Maria. So if I'm still using Libby, okay, let's say I'm doing Overdrive or I put a wish list through Libby or Overdrive, and I'm using either the app or the browser, it shows up on SimplyE as a checkout. Well, I have to discount that. I have to back that out because I'm already counting that on another line item in my spreadsheet. So I am truly looking for just true SimplyE transactions. So you're right, Brad, there's not a lot. And and in my humble opinion, SimplyE does not have a robust audiobook for a girl who's an audiobook girl. So it's truly just ebooks at this juncture,
Okay.
just so you know what I've been
Gotcha.
experiencing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, because you don't want to double dip.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah, and I think you definitely, what do we do? By distributor? How do you sort it? By distributor, and then you truly look just for SimplyE.
Mhm.
That's what I think I do.
And I don't think, just to be completely transparent right now, I don't believe we can, and Tara, you and I can dig into the weeds here, for the statewide collections. I do not believe we can parse out Derby public patron use of the shared collection. So the materials that Brad purchases from the DPLA exchange, we can give you aggregate usage totals, checkouts from that material, but I do not believe right now we can parse out Derby public from Brookfield, from
That's a pity.
Turner. I don't think.
Okay.
We'll confirm that. I want to come back to Nicole, your honest feedback on the audiobook player. But before we get there, the one thing I wanted to say is that the press release that came out last Friday that was talking about LYRASIS moving forward in a new direction with this platform is really exciting for me and Heather and Tara, in that, yes, it's open source software. And when you folks would come to these calls and say, oh, I wish it would do this and this and this and this, it was hard as a partner in this program and having some technical team members on our team. We didn't have the control or the capacity to immediately meet your needs. We would have to, of course, it's an open source program, so we'd go and talk to the community and try to gather stakeholders together and like prioritize this on the development roadmap amongst many other key stakeholders. And so the direction that LYRASIS is going now gives us so much more technical control and the ability to prioritize things that Tara and Heather and I hear from these calls. We can go directly to our technical team and say, hey, hot off the press, folks, we need to reprioritize statistics. Like, we need to know these 5 things and fit them into our development roadmap much more, hopefully, fingers crossed, more quickly, so that we can turn around and get real life solutions to you sooner rather than later. So that's what, speaking for me personally, I'm really excited about, that I can actually deliver on some of these requests that you folks are making. But with that, Nicole, I want to pick your brain about the audiobook player in the app, and don't hold back. Let me know all the things that need to be fixed.
Okay, so I'm hard to change, just like our patrons. So I kind of go crux to Libby and to Hoopla, the other one. But also because I run my wish list out of Overdrive, so it's kind of where right now I have 17 pages of wish list that I just keep adding stuff, but why not? And so for me, I go shopping when I run out of a book to my Overdrive wish list, and I start shopping. I go oldest to newest, because why not? So it's hard now to think to go to SimplyE, and of course my phone's old, so I know I can't. The other thing, if you could tell your developers, can it go to the SD card instead of onto for the droids? Because I think it only goes on the computer. You know what I mean? On the computer, it doesn't transfer. So if you could transfer the SD, then maybe I would use it a little bit more. Personally, because my phone's old. So yeah, it's hard. So I do my shopping through Overdrive, which of course feeds to Libby, and then I forget to go to SimplyE, and I think I don't have it on right now because I think I had to save space. But that's the hard part. And then can I piggyback right? I'm not holding back.
Yeah,
so then,
don't.
Brad, why when I call bibliomation? Oh, how come I see in SimplyE it was one of our book club books? It was an ebook, and then they said, oh, it's not there yet. We're not doing that yet. It's not the general population isn't showing in bibliomation catalog yet. I'm like, okay, then how can I drive stats and get stats for Maria and get credit with IMLS if I'm being a team player with SimplyE and state stuff isn't showing. It's just illogical. Maybe I have to buy extra stuff from SimplyE to show in the bibliomation catalog. I don't know.
Oh, you just mean that the state collections, they haven't been the
Uploaded.
titles, yes, have not been integrated into the bibliomation, or I'm sure this is true for LCI Online as well, into their catalog, haven't been indexed. So this is probably a terrible example, but let's just say Brad has purchased 10 different titles on gardening or Connecticut history, for instance, that aren't in bibliomation already. Those are not appearing in your catalog.
Correct.
Catalog, right?
And so then for you guys, for performance with us and our partnership, you're not showing. So of course I'm going to go to Hoopla and yada yada and Access, Access 6360 or whatever else.
We are working on that. We are working
Okay.
on a way to make it easier for bibliomation or even folks who have their own catalog
Yes.
and don't share a consortial catalog to be able to ingest titles that the state purchases, or if you were to go through and purchase directly from the DPLA exchange, for instance, those titles also, you'd need a mechanism in which to ingest those into your catalog. So we are working on that piece as well.
I don't mean to be a complainer, but it's hard, if you want to change my behavior as a patron, then you're gonna have to make it easier.
I also, just to make Nicole so that she doesn't feel like she's the only one. That's those are sort of my reservations of why I have not really invested a lot of effort into SimplyE at this point. And that's one reason why I wanted to come to this meeting, was to learn more. So I'm hoping that knowledge will get me more excited about it and make me more comfortable using it. So then it is an option I could promote among my staff and among my patrons.
Absolutely. I mean, discoverability is key. The whole value proposition of this project is to make patron discoverability of all of your resources much more easily. And these are key pieces of that puzzle that are just not there yet.
And I think, and I've used it, I don't know when we did it, January, February we started. So, I've been playing with it for 3-4 months, and I think maybe my peers, playing with it, you're like, oh yeah, can't it do this? Simple things that you would never think, why can't I go to the scan disk? Get it off my Droid. I don't know if it matters with Apples, but maybe, they don't think that way, but I know Droids, you got a scan disk, get it off there, and I can download more Pokemon. This is critical in my life, or Harry Potter.
You need to come to every office hour, Nicole. You're now just going to get a direct invitation. There's no going back. Shoot, there was something else you said that I wrote down and I wanted to follow up on, and now I can't remember what it was. I'll think about it and get back to you. Oh, that's what it was. How often, this is a question for the group, how often do you all use the Overdrive web portal to access your account, to facilitate an actual checkout? So not in the Libby app, but you check the title out and either send it to your Libby or you send it to another device, or are you mostly using Libby, the app, on a device? I'm curious what your personal workflows are around that.
If you mean for my personal recreational reading and stuff like that, I'm old school. I was there, I might date myself, but I was there with the beginning, and I still use the Overdrive website because I find it has the most, the best options for me to search for what I want, and to get the results I want, and with the fewest steps. And then after that, it's easy. You just check it out on the website, and if it's depending. I personally like I read my ebooks on Kindle app, so I could transfer it to the Kindle app. or if it's an audiobook, I do prefer the Libby app for that. And I just open the Libby app on my phone and it's right there.
Right. And I'll piggyback on with you, Marianne. True. I do my shopping whenever I run out of a book. So I do, of course, you know, I'm getting blind. I'm old and blind. So I like the bigger screen to do my shopping.
Yes.
And check my wish list and do whatever. So let's say I run out of books once a month. So once a month I shop on the Overdrive web browser. If I'm paying bills, I also listen on it because it'll sync. So I can charge my phone for Pokemon and then I can do my bills and then I can go play at home. This is critical. But I mean, the same thing. I mean, it's easy. It's an easy sync between Libby and the Overdrive desktop.
Yep.
You know, I remember when we had RB Digital that, you know, there was that nice to go into the web interface and, you know, then when you went into your app, whatever you checked out showed up there. And I know there's been talk, I think, when I spoke to James English, he was mentioning that the web interface is something that we're looking to develop and that it's maybe on the agenda pretty firmly at this point. And I think that might be something that would be helpful, just to have that option.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful, but my only hesitation is I know it's helpful to me because let's face it, I'm old and I'm used to doing things the way I'm used to doing it. I don't know. I mean, for the future, I'm not sure how much resources I would throw at it, because I suspect that as time goes by and the younger generation comes and it's implanted in their brains or whatever, they'll just be mainly working with the app. But I would be happy.
Well, I think it's funny that the one of the reports, either the Panorama Project report or the Freckle report by Tim Coates, they did a little bit of an assessment of who's utilizing ebooks and e-audio, and it's not the kids. And I think that'll change over time. It's more of us in the middle, you know, from say 25 or so to, you know, to 60, you know, that big chunk in the middle, they're the users of the ebook and e-audio. So, you know, again, that'll change over time. I had assumed that kids would be much heavier users, but they're not.
In SimplyE's defense, I mean, I just pulled out my phone just to see it again because it's been a while since I've been in. You know, it's actually a large interface for those of us who have to wear glasses. It's pretty easy across the top. It says all ebooks and audio. I mean, it tells you what it is. It's easy to get there, and then it's large, you know, fiction, nonfiction. So I mean, its setup is pretty good. I just think maybe I've never found what I was looking for in it. And maybe that's why I also didn't go there. But I mean, it looks pretty large the way it's set up on it.
Yeah, I think my understanding of the original app development history at the New York Public Library was they spent a lot of time focusing on accessibility.
Yeah.
And that is why I think as a stark contrast to Libby, it is very, very streamlined,
Large.
more modern, because they kept accessibility directly in mind. But the flip side of that coin is that you don't have all the fancy bells and whistles. You don't have a little avatar go following you around and be like, how can I help you? Let's put in your barcode and PIN. Let's point you to this thing. And so I think there's a balance to be struck there between keeping it clean and accessible and modern, and also adding some of those bells and whistles that that we know patrons have come to rely on. Question, you said, so you're doing your wish list grooming through the Overdrive web catalog, Nicole. I'm just going to continue to pick your brain. You're also listening to audiobooks through the web catalog as you have your phone charging beside you. Okay, I want to make sure I got that right. So then you get done paying your bills. You're ready to move on to Pokemon. You move away from your physical computer, laptop or desktop. I won't judge. And then It's an old Hewlett Packard. Just kidding.
It's a Mac, actually, so you can't even judge.
That's right. All right, now you're not ever going to get out of office hours. You're going to have to. I'm going to come to Connecticut and drive and find you.
That's all right. We're going to have a lot. No, but don't tell anybody. My office is a gym.
A gym? Sounds great.
So we could have fun really soon.
Excellent. So her Mac is mounted on the treadmill.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So when you peel off for the day, does the exact place where you were listening in your audiobook sync to your phone?
Yes, between Overdrive and between the desktop and my Libby. Yes.
The exact, not just like the start of the chapter, but the exact. Okay, got it.
And also when I turn off my car in Libby and I turn my car back on, it remembers exactly where I am. I don't even have to open the app. It's magic. And okay. I don't know if that happens with SimplyE because I haven't gone that far.
I mean,
it's like I don't even have to bookmark it. It just opens.
Yeah. Let's be honest. I'm gonna guess no. I think that's
yeah, me too. But okay.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, I recently received feedback actually about that, Carissa, about the sort of the bookmarking of the e-audio, that it doesn't sync up. You know, you go from your office to the car and you had gotten as far as say chapter 5 and you had started at chapter 3 at the beginning of the day and it reverts back to chapter 3, you know, things like that. My experience is more with the ebooks, which the bookmarking in my experience is spot on. It's always right there. With ebooks in SimplyE, but the e-audio I don't utilize as much, so I'm not quite sure from a personal experience, but the feedback I do get is that sometimes, you know, it doesn't sync up very well with where you left off.
Jotting all these notes down. Thank you all for your honest input. And I apologize for derailing with my questions.
I derail a lot. But I agree with Maria that it would help her and it would help us. I mean, I don't mind the sorting and okay, I just have to remember the directions, but really to know what is mine versus, you know, or what is the collection. Because, you know, we're all here trying to be team players to support the state library, have this app. It would help to know how many people, because RB Digital did that, you know, how much went to the state and how much went there, because I didn't have RB Digital as my standalone purchase. And then I had a hard time getting RB Digital in my catalog, but it's kind of like the SimplyE thing again. But I wanted to know if they were coming to me, because I just want to know what my people were reading, how it was going.
And I think with the statistics, it's a bit of a challenge to, you know, as we're building it out from the LYRASIS side to get it all, you know, it's not all there yet. And then, you know, I did reach out to the vendors to see if they could provide me, they could give me the total numbers, but they weren't able to break it down by library. And I think it's important, and it would probably be helpful if we couldn't do everything, if we could do the state collection and how it circulates by library, and then the individual libraries, I think we kind of already said this, but the individual libraries could look at their Overdrive perhaps, or whatever other vendors that they would have integrated, and just look at those numbers, and you would really get, here's the state collection and here's my collection or my consortium collection, and I can really derive my numbers in a pretty clean way that way. I think that might be a good way to approach it as well, if that makes sense.
No, it does. I always learned from experience, it's usually best to get the statistics from the actual vendor that the source is coming from, instead of some third party, you know, coordinator or whatever.
And I think that's when, if you look at vendors that I've worked with, and I mean, I don't have a huge amount of experience, but what RB Digital provided, I think is the best that I've seen in terms of really giving us detailed information about the usage of materials by libraries. So that's a good model maybe to look at. You know, Maria and I are trying to work together, and I realized that I didn't have the last 6 months, which was basically, you know, the part of the fiscal year that we had RB Digital. And so we're coming up on the end of the fiscal year and we're looking at that. And I didn't have the 6 month totals. All I had were monthly reports starting in July and ending in December. So we had to come up with a way to kind of put those all together. So that wasn't, you know, terribly difficult. But you know, it made me look at some of the old RB Digital reports and see that it was very robust. I mean, they provided you with, you know, usage down to the title level, you know, so you saw what titles individual libraries were checking out. You could see holds, and then of course you got the total numbers of e-audio and ebook checkouts. So, you know, pretty robust data was provided, and that you could use in a lot of different ways, not just for reporting your statistics, but for collection development purposes,
Exactly.
which can be really important as our dollars are becoming more and more critical, that we spend them correctly on these collections.
If you are comfortable, Brad, and wouldn't mind, if you could send a sample of one of those RB Digital reports to Tara and myself, that would be helpful. You might have already done that. If you have, I'm sorry if you've sent it to me. I feel like I might have asked you that before, but
Well, they're on the website, and then I can send you also what I work off of to come up with that report that we put on the website. I think a lot of it's there, but there might be a couple of things that I hide. So I'll send you the unhidden version.
To give a +1 to what Brad said, all of that data in the long term is so fabulous. And again, not just for collection management, because of course you want to know what's actually circulating and where's their demand in terms of holds, but just long term and being able to show that this asset is being used. You know, the state's sinking millions of dollars into this stuff, and we'd like to be able to show to some kind of stakeholders and constituents that it's got a, you know, it was worth it. All of Brad's time and Eric's time, like it was all worth it. And people are using this resource in addition to using it for their own content. So, you know, we may not be able to grab it in the next 2 weeks, but if that's something you can build into the management system going forward, that's going to be really helpful for individual libraries.
That's great information. We'll definitely bring that to our development team.
And then it also makes a more marketable product to other states, because I think other states and other libraries are going to want this information as well, particularly if they're using any kind of state or federal funding to pay for it. You know, we also often report this information to IMLS because in some cases we're using federal money, and they always want to know things like that: circulation, usage, all of those numbers that we're trying to get out of it.
Yeah, I know one of the reports that I do every year is a cost benefit of our database usage. You know, so you can basically show that, you know, if all the libraries individually had to purchase these databases, it would cost, you know, 100 million, but the state provides them for 2 million, say, and those are not real numbers. Those are just an example. But, you know, you can show that the value that's provided by providing the databases to the libraries. So that type of ability is nice to have. And, you know, and that's why the usage of SimplyE, and as we go forward, you know, the new version of the app is going to be really important, because we want to get people utilizing it so that we can show the value, because to me, there's amazing value provided there. You know, you're basically looking at, because of the partnership with DPLA and you know, the state library and LYRASIS, you know, you look at the collection, and there's 20,000 items that are basically provided for free to libraries that they can share with their patrons. And you know, that's pretty amazing if you're a small library, and even if you're an urban library that has, you know, a lot of people utilizing your services. But either way, to be able to have a collection like that, you know, for a rural library, it's a standalone collection that's viable. You know, it's a great resource to provide your patrons. And then for the bigger libraries, it obviously supplements what you have, especially if you're a member of a consortium. You know, with the consortial collections and the state collections, you know, sometimes you see libraries, they have over 40,000 items that they're able to share. So we really do want to articulate that value in a meaningful way.
So is my request for numbers bigger than the next 2 weeks worth of work? Like, that's probably a bigger question that's going to take. Okay, all right. But see, that's helpful for me to know, because then I can help to guide the libraries that are using SimplyE, you know, to find this information for themselves. You know, Nicole seems like she's really savvy, and she's grabbing these numbers every month to document what's going on. Yeah, so, you know, that's probably something that every library just needs to be doing in their own monthly reports to their boards and their stakeholders. Just add it in there, and then it's easy enough to add up at the end of the year, because you have those 12 little increments you just put together.
If you set up the Excel spreadsheet, right?
Yeah, is that how you do it, Nicole?
Yeah, in my Excel, it's an old, I stole it. I brought it with me when I used to work. I had to do stats for Edith Wheeler. So somehow it made it right with me 10 years later. Here I am using it again.
Nice.
So, yeah.
If I have a question about how to pull some usage statistics, who would be the best person for me to contact? Or is there a place on the website that I could go to?
The best place is to just shoot an email to our support email address, which will open up a ticket. It will ping a whole bunch of us, Tara and myself included.
Okay.
And then we can work with you directly to get you the information that you need. And I'll put that into the chat. I always get asked this on these calls, and I should have it memorized. And then I always like, oh, wait, I'm going to blank. But I'll find it and I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. I doubt you have to use it very much yourself, so.
And Marianne, what I did is I dropped the link on the Ego site that has the sheets that Lyris has put together for the various consortiums and users of SimplyE, how they can go through and download the stats and parse them out the way they need to.
Thank you. I've been on the website to SimplyE, but I don't think I've seen that page, that particular page before. So thank you. I'll bookmark it before, and just in case. So thanks.
All right.
I think I shared everything I could possibly share.
Fantastic.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
So I'm going to go ahead and eat my lunch, Marianne. And thank you very much for being, thank you very much for being open and listening to us. You know, I hope it came across as constructive and not critical.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for sharing. It's critical to the success of this project that we're working on. So we strongly encourage all open and honest feedback. So that's the only way we're going to get better.
Good. Well, have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Nicole.
You're welcome, Brad. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
I'm gonna go ahead and go to, thank you.
Thanks, Marianne.
Marianne, good to see you.
So Brad, maybe I will email you afterward, and you and I can coordinate on language in the annual report that will help people figure out how to count their SimplyE stuff.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's probably our best bet. It's, you know, I'm trying to think of some way that we could put something together, but I think there is a way you could actually go in and, you know, here are the 91 libraries that are live, and go into each of their interfaces and download their reports. And then, but I'm trying to think, if I was going to make an attempt at that, how long it would take and how many hours, and if it's even reasonable to think that
Brad, because you have admin privileges on each of the circ managers, you should be able to pull the report for all of the libraries on the circ manager. So you'd end up with just 4 reports. You wouldn't have to go to each individual library, I think, depending on what you're looking for.
Yeah, I tried to see if I could basically get all the libraries say in bibliomation. And it didn't look like I could do it that way, but it's, you know,
Okay.
with me, could be easily operator error. So
When it comes to
I could do
staff,
individual libraries, obviously. I could go into every single library that's live and pull their data. But I didn't think I could do the whole consortium and have it, you know, run a report. But again, that might be my lack of knowledge and experience.
it very well might just be I haven't tried to do it and I'm speaking out of turn. I'll just poke around here while we're chatting and see if I can.
So Brad, if it is possible to export 4 reports, you can do that and just throw them at me and then I'll crunch the numbers and stick them in the annual report. But there's no way you should run 91 separate individual, like that's beyond the call of duty, and we'll just ask each library to do it for themselves at that point.
Yeah, and then next year will be a big improvement, you know, that we'll say, hey, you know, last year was tough, but this year we have a great way of pulling your stats. So, and I'm confident that'll be the case. Yeah, it's, you know, I'm very good at finding the hard way to do things that get you to the right answer. And but in this case, I think the timing, you know, as we're ramping up with a whole bunch of different things, it might be hard for me to do it the hard way. So I think, but if I can get those 4 reports, I think it's 4, right? We have 4.
4. It would be the 3, and
that
then
might
the
be-
standalone libraries would have their 4.
Yeah. So.
Okay, we'll look into that. I just tried running an all report just for Lion to test it, and it's giving me a timeout. So maybe for a year's worth of data, it's too much, but maybe I could break it into like quarters or something. I'll have to test that a little bit more, but I can let you know.
I know James had given me some links to some dashboards for a couple of libraries that had done some testing for them. And sometimes I can go in there and get some information, but it doesn't give us exactly what we need. It gives, it'll give a chart, you know, that shows the usage, but it doesn't give always the whole number. And I know that was a work in progress, and I don't think it's even being necessarily, you know, followed up on at this point. But I sneak in there every now and then trying to, can I figure this out? I always like to see if I can be self-sufficient and, you know, learn how to pull the stats and you know, at least have an answer. Sometimes just so when I'm talking to people, I can say, oh yeah, I know we have this many patrons and they've checked out this many titles, and, you know, and so on. You know, more anecdotally than for a formal report. So sometimes I'll go in and check, but it's hit or miss, to say the least.
And it's possible that some of the ways that you want to slice this data in the shared collection, especially, we're not even capturing the right, how do I want to describe this? The right facets on the usage. So we are certainly capturing checkouts on the statewide GPLA Exchange collection, for instance. So we know checkouts and we know we can parse by format. But I don't even know if we're recording in the database what library it comes from, anything about the patron. We might not even care about that source or have a way to capture that right yet. So when you were asking, Maria, if this is a 2-week thing, it's like I would bet my house that there's additional development that's needed to even record in the mobile apps the right facets of information with these events that then would be stored in the database, and then we could parse from there. We can, again, Tara and I will chat with the dev team, but I'm pretty sure that there's going to be additional development needed to get those particular things tracked at that kind of granular level that then we can aggregate up at then different levels. I think that's part of the beauty of this project, but also the complexity. There's so many different levels now that Overdrive doesn't even have to deal with, really. It's just like the consortia and then the individual libraries. And so now we have the additional level of the state library to kind of roll up into or roll down from. So
it's almost like we would say at this point, we would ask the libraries themselves, could you run reports and send us your numbers, and then we'll have them all, you know, because they could, you know, again, do that individually.
Well, that's what I was thinking, Brad. Even you know, if I collect that through the annual report and then give that back to you,
Mhm.
we wouldn't have it until mid-November or December or something. But if that's helpful, I don't know.
Mm.
You know, I can put in a line that says, give me your SimplyE numbers here, instead of putting it in with everything else that they have as ebook and e-audio. Maybe, I don't know, we could do that.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to ask them to report it and we're not going to provide them specifically with the data ourselves, then they will have to go ahead and create it. You know, they'll have to run those reports or that report for the whole fiscal year. And then, yeah, if they provide us with that data, obviously, you know, we have our answer anyway for that piece of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
91 folks we have to encourage to do that work.
Yep. The advantage is, while they're doing their annual report, it's all just a honking lot of work anyway.
It
So
sure is. Yeah.
you know, to add one more thing, they'll survive, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, again, I think I talked about it with the state library folks at DLD. You know, I used to do this report that Maria is working on now from a public library perspective. So, and I had a binder that literally, you know, was loaded with every question and how I got the answer to that question, so that year over year I would know how to do it. Because, you know, a year later, how did I get that information? How did we get those numbers? So, you know, it really is a challenge, and this would just be one more piece. But I also know is that it wasn't unmanageable to do it. You know, it took some organization and some cooperation with some of your colleagues to kind of get all that information accurately and consistently year over year. So I think it can be done, and maybe, you know, maybe we find a way to help the folks, you know, run those reports.
Right.
I mean, I think oh, go ahead, Tara.
Oh, I just wanted to say I'm available to help. You know, I wrote out some instructions that are hopefully fairly easy to follow, but you know, not everybody as you know, tech inclined, I would say. So I can be around to help walk people through that. I've also completed you know, end of fiscal year reports for a library for a small branch. You know, so I know how stressful that can be. And like you said, Brad, just being able to organize your time and your thoughts and take the time to sit down and do it. It's not hard. It's just a matter of following the steps. So I feel like I can help people if they need it.
And then, of course, our ultimate goal, again, now that we have more control over the software, is that the administrative interface that we call the Circ Manager right now, that dashboard would be self-serve. So it would, I mean, it's pretty minimal at best. That's a kind description of it right now. Minimal. It's not even minimal, really. It's aspiring to be minimal. Would have visual graphics that would be skimmable very quickly, and then easily would allow libraries to very easily download like the full report of all the data. So I think that's where having the RB Digital example, Brad, comes into play. Like what does a fully fleshed out report with all of the gory details look like? How could we format that? And then you know, what are just like the snapshots of visual information that you want to see in chart format graphically in an interface on, you know, any regular time that you would check in. So we have aspirational things that we're moving forward toward that will hopefully make annual reporting about SimplyE usage much easier in the nearish term. I won't say short term, but nearish term. And Tara, I just pulled a report from, I think I went to the Bibliomation Circ Manager.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's capturing when you don't pick a library in the report, what library the stats, like the Circ checkouts, are from. There's no cell or column that is capturing that data. So you can only see an aggregate total for everything, but you can't parse out. So in other words, we can pull that report at a circ manager level for you to get aggregate totals, Brad, but then we would still have to go to each individual library to see the individual library stats. Unless Tara and I can take this offline and we can articulate what we need, but we might be able to ping our tech colleagues because it's all coming from the database and say, we want this report, but we want this additional field. Please make it happen for us. So that might be a possibility we can see.
And, just a question, well, I have all of you on the line. In terms of the new app, do we have still, we're adhering to the timeline that we assumed before, which was kind of in the fall sometime?
To the best of my knowledge right now, we are targeting the release of the app in the August-ish timeframe. The goal is to have libraries transitioned over by September. So we'll, in the next, I think that'll come to more kind of a firm timeline here within the next 2 weeks / beginning of July. And Tara and Heather and my plan is to start communicating with libraries at the beginning of July, a firm timeline. Like, we will be moving your library over on this date, and here are the kind of the lead up steps to that. But that's tentatively what we're thinking right now, what we've heard from the tech team.
That's good. Okay. Great.
Fingers crossed. And all wood knocked.
I'm gonna duck out. Thank you all very much for your
Bye,
time.
Maria.
Thanks, Maria.
See you later. Thanks, Brad.
Talk to you soon.
Okay.